Let me give you another example. And this comes actually in a voluntary disclosure context. This time, the client received. The client was a Canadian citizen and a permanent resident of the United States. He received foreign inheritance, and when I say foreign, I mean non-Canadian and non-US. And the question really was, where should he declare himself a tax resident? In the United States, or, and I apologize, for the year in which the inheritance occurred, he was not yet a permanent resident. He was just here in the United States. So he satisfied the substantial presence test, but he was not a US permanent resident at that point. So the question was, should he be a tax resident in Canada, or should he be a tax resident in the United States? He comes to a business lawyer in New York. The business lawyer actually brings in an accountant from a very large firm. And what they do is they say, okay, that's very interesting because it shows you to some degree the way that a lot of accountants are thinking. Their primary goal was to avoid US tax liability. So they declared my client as a non-resident of the United States and as a Canadian resident, avoiding all of the taxes which were associated with the income from that foreign inheritance. The problem was that there was sufficient foreign tax credit, first of all, to offset most of that tax liability. There was some, but there was not much. But in Canada, foreign inheritance was actually taxed. Unlike in the United States, where it would have to be only declared, in Canada it would be taxed. And because they were late, they were facing penalties. So they had a Canadian attorney negotiating some sort of a settlement with Canadian authorities anonymously for 5 or 6 years. And when they say my client was only part of that larger family that received the inheritance. So by thinking very narrowly about only US tax liabilities, they exposed the client to a much larger foreign tax liability. In the end, what I did is I declared himself a US tax resident. We did a voluntary disclosure on the income. He paid some taxes, but he didn't pay a cent of penalties in Canada, and didn't pay a cent of taxes on his foreign inheritance in the United States because there is no foreign inheritance tax in the United States. But that shows you that you really, when it comes to international tax issues, you really need an international tax attorney if you want to approach that problem correctly, properly.